This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Death toll in Uganda floods jumps to 16, with several people still missing. ISIL in Libya claims at least 4 attacks in different Libyan cities. And how women in Africa are balancing childcare and income generation. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. Former Lord's Resistance Army abductees in Uganda tell their stories through the Stories of Girls in War art exhibition. And in sports, Cricket South Africa promises swift resolution to the current crisis hitting the sport in the Rainbow Nation. Welcome to Africa Live once again. Let's begin in Uganda, where floods have killed at least 16 people in the country. The Red Cross says rescuers have been recovering the bodies of victims swept to their death by the flash floods in 12 areas in the country's west. Heavy rains has been battering the country for weeks and intensified overnight on Friday into Saturday. Police, military aid agencies, and community members are assisting with the search and rescue operations. Last week, landslides caused by heavy rain claimed a number of lives in the east of the country. Uganda's disaster management agency has advised people not to walk, ride, or drive across any flooded roads or bridges and to keep away from riverbanks and steep slopes. Well, large parts of East Africa have suffered floods and landslides in recent weeks. Weather experts say that what we are witnessing is in part due to the Indian Ocean dipole. It is also referred to as the Indian Ocean's El Nino. Experts say that this year's dipole is the strongest in 6 decades. This year's a positive dipole, and the event is taking place. And that means that higher than average temperatures in the western part of the Indian Ocean and the opposite in the east. The cooler temperatures result in less rainfall hitting Australia. The country has been dealing with devastating bushfires. The warmer temperatures cause more rainfall to hit eastern Africa. Ethiopia, Uganda, South Sudan are among the countries affected. Flash floods and landslides have already killed 300 people. The UN says weather events have affected around 2.8 million people. Well, earlier we spoke to Abdelkader Abikar, a climate change expert, on more about these extreme weather conditions. Let's take a listen.
As we know, global warming is now taking the grip on Africa, particularly the eastern part of Africa. And that means that the Indian Ocean water is warming up, is actually experiencing temperatures that were never experienced before. So this increase of temperature is creating cyclones in the southeast part near Mozambique and on the northeast part of Africa, which is Somalia, the Horn of Africa. So that's what's happening. That the temperature increase is causing this havoc. The cause is actually the global trend of climate, which is and the climate change that we are experiencing globally, and El Nino or La Nina. These are the factors that actually are now playing in Africa. Africa used to get its droughts and its increase in rainfall at predictable times before. But nowadays, things are not predictable. So what is happening is that the global warming is affecting adversely in different areas. In one area, it is droughts that's occurring, less of rainfall, which is what is happening in southern Africa in some places, and an increase of rainfall along the margins of the Indian Ocean. That margin starting from Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, and Somalia.
Well, Tunisian authorities are seeking to improve the quality of treated water in the country. A pilot project is being implemented in the North African country and the Mediterranean basin. Treated water is now being reused as complementary irrigation. CGTN's Adnan Shawashi filed this report.
Minawara, or non-conventional water reuse in agriculture in Mediterranean countries project, was launched by the Ministry of Agriculture and Water Resources. The rate of reuse treated wastewater is of 23% in Tunisia.
Additional water resources will be provided by consolidating the capacity of government institutions in the Mediterranean and providing support to all actors like technicians and farmers in Tunisia, Palestine, Jordan, Italy, and in Spain.
The project also aims to rationalize treated water use practices and ensure the good management and governance of water resources in accordance with national and international standards.
The ultimate goal is to enhance access to water through the treatment of wastewater and to reuse it in complementary irrigation.
The project will help increase the integration of non-conventional water reuse operations by means of scaling up partnership among scientific research institutions using purification techniques.
As the Ministry of Local Affairs and Environment, we're boosting the reuse of non-conventional water because we're facing serious aridity nationwide. There are several partners in this project. We are working closely with the National Sanitation Office.
60 million cubic meters are now tapped out of a potential of about 273 million cubic meters. Experts assert that this quantity is the current capacity of a new dam. The non-conventional water resources are used to irrigate golf courses and green areas, as well as the artificial replenishment of water tables and, to a lesser extent, the irrigation of farmland. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
And ISIL in Libya has released a video of its latest attacks on the torn country. Dozens of Libyan citizens and officials appear to get executed in at least 4 attacks the groups claim responsibility for in different Libyan cities. Now, the video is the first display of ISIL's brutal violence since the death of its former leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Here is Adel al-Maroui with more.
ISIL in Libya released a brutal video online. For 31 minutes, it shows Libyan citizens getting lined up, beheaded or shot. Dozens appear to be executed in several cities in the divided North African nation. All of them are territories controlled by the LNA forces leader General Khalifa Haftar.
ISIL is desperate to display power. I think they failed mainly because all citizens executed are Libyans, not experts, and they're not high-ranking officials. I believe it's an attempt to embarrass Haftar. They've executed Libyan citizens to send a message that he cannot protect citizens living under his control.
Some of the Libyan citizens have been abducted for over a year. Their families knew about their death through that video.
ISIL is now in Libya's south, which is geographically far from Egypt and Tunisia, but it's very close to the Sahara region and Sudan. Its threat persists because the moment the Libyan army lightens its grip over that region, ISIL fighters can easily spread to neighboring countries and from that to the rest of Africa.
Since its defeat in the Levant, ISIL has been desperate to re-establish itself. Analysts warn the video is an indication that ISIL could be capable of spreading beyond Libya.
ISIL's provinces have shrunk from 32 down to only 10 across the world. These 10 are very active. To the group, Libya provides an alternative geographic incubator similar to that it had in Iraq and Syria. There they follow a strategy to temporarily make cities fall. They enter to kill some officials, then leave. It's mainly to exhaust the military power there. The danger in that is it's proof that ISIL can attack these cities anytime.
For months, analysts have been warning that the civil war between Libyan factions over the capital Tripoli could allow ISIL to grow. The attacks in the video appear to be old. Still, it's considered a bold move from the terrorist group. It shows that ISIL thinks it's strong enough in southern Libya that it is defying the international community with this online propaganda. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The news continues on Africa Live. Here's a look at what's ahead. How women in Africa are balancing childcare and income generation. And former Lord's Resistance Army abductees in Uganda tell their stories through the Stories of Girls in War art exhibition.
For lucrative economic data out of the country, the country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Perina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed.
And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
From Nairobi City Center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. One of the major challenges that faces mothers who work is how to ensure their children are properly cared for while they are away. In Kenya, about 300,000 preschool children, those aged 4 years and below in Nairobi's low-income areas, are at risk of poor mental and social development because of the substandard childcare environments they are exposed to while their mothers work. CGTN's Daniel Arap Moy looks at how one Kenyan mother operating a daycare center is changing the narrative for the better.
The list of accolades continues to grow for Bees Haven Childcare Center at 360 Apartment Phase 1 in Soikiamau on the outskirts of Kenya's capital, Nairobi. The childcare facility, which opened its doors 1 year ago, picked up the institutional award in Kenya for Best Daycare Center in the country.
There are those schools when the child comes back home, they come back early enough and probably do not have a domestic manager back at home. We pick them and they stay here till the parents come. I'd like parents to embrace daycares as foundation places for their children. Let's not just decide to take children straight from home to the kindergarten, or rather to play with.
In most informal settlements of Africa, many women resort to using cheap childcare facilities, which poses a danger to the children.
Parents should do due diligence about daycares before they take their children there. They should check the attitude of the staff, the hygiene of the daycare.
The children at this center are given a safe and stimulating play environment to help them develop the skills they need to thrive as adults.
For the first time when I came here, I found it very well because my daughter could interact with other children.
I brought my son here. He was 2 years and he cannot able to talk. But this time he can talk, he can eat on his own.
Numerous studies show that all children, especially those from low-income homes, benefit greatly from sound child care. According to Barry Itindi, the key ingredients are quite simple, starting with plenty of caregivers who ideally have some expertise in child development.
Usually after lunch, we eat and then we go and sleep. We wake up at around 3, 4. We take the snacks and then we rest a bit and then we go home.
A recent mapping exercise suggests that the number of informal daycares operational in Nairobi is at least 2,700.
Over the last 1 year, Bees Haven has tried to build a holistic approach to transforming the services offered to the children here at the daycare center.
Daniel Arap Moy, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
South African nursing mothers, too, are facing challenges. When they need to go to work, their worry is who will care for their children. When mothers are assured their little ones are safe and happy, they are more productive at work and less stressed. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
Children in informal settlements lack access to quality early childhood development services. Approximately 3.8 million children live in dire poverty in South Africa, with the gap between rich and poor widening. For those who broke the cycle of poverty and can now afford quality preschool education, the difference is evident.
My name is Bonto Maduna. I grew up in a township in Pretoria called Mabopane. I went to a preschool there called Leraton Creche, needing lots of facilities and donations in order to help the parents and the children to reach their better heights. I wanted something different for my children because I've been back to Mabopane where I grew up, and I loved my childhood there. But when I've come back as an adult to show my husband and my children where I grew up, a lot of my friends that are still there are not where I'm at. And that's really painful and heartbreaking to see.
The most obvious difference between private and informal settlement preschools is cost. Children in private daycare receive one-on-one personalized teaching and stimulating learning tools.
We definitely as a school have benefits because we're able to cater for less in a class. Which is extremely important because it's also more one-on-one attention. In an environment where you're looking at 30 to 50 children in a class with one, you're not going to get that one-on-one attention. And I think that is the unfortunate reason, is that they haven't got that actual individual care that is needed for them to grow to their full potential.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that everyone has the right to education, despite where they're born.
So no matter what circumstance they are born in, they've got a right to be something and to be there. And with given the correct materials, guidance and care, they can get there. And for me, it's very important that we as a country need to fight for this, because each child is not asked to be brought up in different circumstances. So it is very important because it is our future.
My dream is for every South African child to be given an equal opportunity. And I think we can all do something to contribute to that. Children sometimes come to school on an empty stomach and they can't learn, they can't concentrate. And I think we all need to do our part to help the children of South Africa to reach the highest heights that they deserve.
The South African government has made a number of strides in addressing the scourge of poverty that continues to affect more than 60% of children. However, a considerable number of children still don't get adequate early childhood development services. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Former Lord's Resistance Army abductees in Uganda are telling their harrowing stories. By doing so, they hope to fight the stigma in their communities. The art exhibition, dubbed Stories of Girls in War, was organized by the Refugee Law Project and the Canadian Human Rights Museum. CGTN's Hilary Ayasega reports.
A skirt riddled with bullets, a constant reminder to Evelyn Amoni about the LRA war. She was abducted at the age of 12.
That's a skirt I was wearing in 2005 when I returned. When we were returning, we were shot at, and the person that was shooting at me told me they shot at me 11 bullets, but none of those bullets caught me.
Amoni is a former wife to Joseph Kony, the leader of the Lord's Resistance Army. But as she struggles to put the past behind, she faces stigma in her community.
When they want to get married, it's always difficult because once they realize you're formally abducted, getting married becomes a problem.
By sharing her life experience, Evelyn hopes to inspire many other people who are still struggling to recover from effects of the war. The women are showcasing items used while in captivity. They include a grinding stone, a school sweater, and drawings that depict life in the jungles. Organizers plan to take this exhibition to other parts of Africa.
We do want the exhibit to travel, not only in Uganda, but we want it to travel to Sierra Leone, to the DRC, in other countries where women and girls have had similar experience and want to have conversations about their experience and about human rights in their own context.
Amoni believes speaking out on issues that affect them could help end stigma in her community. Hilary Isiga, CGTN, Kampala.
The third World Heritage Cultural Expo was recently held in China's Fuzhou's International Convention and Exhibition Center. The exhibition offered a platform to showcase intangible cultural heritage and traditions. It focused on, among other things, One Belt and One Road cultural tourism, China's World Heritage, and cross-straits culture. The event has contributed to Chinese wisdom and provides Chinese solutions for the protection and management of the cultural and natural heritage of the countries along the One Belt and One Road route, as well as exchanges and mutual learning among civilizations. Guess what? We've got your sports news coming up after the break. Here's a look at what's ahead. In sports, Cricket South Africa promises swift resolutions to the current crisis hitting the sport in the Rainbow Nation.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's talk a bit of cricket. Cricket South Africa is aiming to lift itself out of the doldrums after a couple of days that saw journalists' accreditation revoked, the resignation of 3 board members, the suspension of the CEO, and the announcement by a major sponsor that it would not renew a long-standing sponsorship. CGTN's CS Duplessis has more on CSA's plans to turn things around.
At a press briefing at OR Tambo International in Johannesburg on Saturday afternoon, the Cricket South Africa president, Richard Nta, addressed the media on the way forward following a 2-day board meeting where the current crisis in the sport was top of the agenda.
This is an opportunity for us to share with you and the nation the outcomes of the last 2 days. It was a very robust meeting with a very clear message that the Members' Council expect the board to exercise authority and its power in the interest of cricket.
The acting CEO, Dr. Jacques Fall, has had past experience working in the same role 8 years ago. And while the investigation into current CEO Thabang Marol takes place, he'll be tasked with getting the organization back on track from an operational point of view.
We've got to get a plan going a structured way, and also got to engage with the staff as well. So I've got some experience in 2011, so hopefully I've learned something. But I think in terms of relationships, that's probably a good start.
Former International Cricket Council CEO and former South African wicketkeeper Dave Richardson will assist Fall on a day-to-day basis in a consultancy role, but believes that the future is positive and that by addressing the problems now, cricket will benefit in the long run.
The challenge has been identified and that steps are being taken. And the most encouraging thing is you forget it when you're out the country, but when you come back you realize the ingredients are there. It's a case of just making them work for you, and we forget how, okay, we love our rugby and our football and that, but cricket is our major summer sport, and the interest in cricket and the public's desire for us to be good on the world stage is as strong as ever.
It is clear that Cricket South Africa has been doing some serious soul-searching in the past few days and subsequently are making all the right noises, despite not officially taking responsibility for the crisis. An acting CEO has been appointed, a former ICC chief will consult, and with the imminent arrival of a new director of cricket, it appears as if the sport is headed in the right direction after hitting rock bottom. CS Duplessis, CGTN, Johannesburg.
In Tanzania, the search for the fittest man and woman went down recently in an extreme competition in Dar es Salaam, where contestants were put through grueling strength and endurance challenges as the ultimate test of their power and agility. CGTN's Daniel Kijo was amongst the enthralled crowd that witnessed the spectacle, and he brings us more.
These exercises are meant to push these athletes to their limits. Blood, sweat and tears are literally what it takes to be crowned the fittest man or woman in the country. Some break along the way, but trainer Fike Wilson, a former bodybuilder, says in this contest there is no mercy.
We had
100 push-ups. We had 100 sit-ups. You know, we had 100 dips. So if you complete the number, you're going to be liable to become a champion. Otherwise, you won't become a champion without that. That's the criteria.
Unlike the last competition 2 years ago, women are competing for the inaugural Miss Fitness title. These are some of the best athletes in the country. Each man and woman here wants to prove they're the best among the best. With the title, the winner not only gets a cash prize, but also national recognition. The different challenges are meant to test overall strength, both physical and mental. But in the end, Richard Lupembe and Loveness Tarimo outperformed their peers, each winning $1,500 in prize money.
My patience, courage and strength are what led me to my victory, and nothing else. Trust me, yes, people train and had bigger muscles, but no cardio.
People should not be scared. They should try it. As you see, I am succeeding at this sport. It's something I love. So I beg them to start and just visit a gym.
This competition is more than just having the power to lift weights. It's also about endurance and psychological determination. Having demonstrated those skills, the victors have shown themselves worthy of the titles. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
And let's talk a bit of football. Algerian international Remy Bensebaini scored twice, including